The investigation team found the hiker's tent, but it was torn. The cloth of the tent was ripped from the inside, and the threads were sticking outward. This made it seem as if the hikers inside were so terrified that they cut open the tent and ran out. Some footprints were also seen, prints of shoes as well as bare feet, clearly marked in the snow. The hiker's camera was found too, along with some strange photographs. Even after a full criminal investigation, and even though their photos and daily diary entries were recovered, the case could not be solved. It has remained a mystery for the last 65 years. This is the story of the Mountain of the Dead, and the incident is remembered as the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Welcome back to the videos of Nexus of Knowledge. On the morning of January 23rd, 1959, a group of 10 hikers boarded a train and set off toward the Ural Mountain range in Siberia. The group had 8 men and 2 women, and their leader was Igor Dyatlov. They carried a diary in which they wrote every detail of their journey. During their train ride, the group leader Igor Dyatlov made an entry in the diary. Its translation says, "I wonder what new things are waiting for us on this journey. What new experiences will we have?" For the next few days, the group traveled by train, bus, truck, and even on horseback. Eventually, they continued onward on foot and on skis. At this point, one member of the group, Yuri, fell sick. He decided to return while the remaining 9 hikers continued the journey. These photos were taken at the moment when Yuri was parting from his 9 companions. He had no idea that this would be the last time he ever saw them. The group of 9 hikers then continued their journey through the snowy mountains, taking pictures and writing in their diary as they went. All the photos and diary entries found later seemed completely normal. On February 1st, they reached the base of a mountain which local people called the Mountain of the Dead. They spent the whole day climbing that mountain and finally decided to set up their camp just a few meters below the peak. These are some of the last photos found on their camera. The final diary entry made at that time says, "It is hard to imagine this kind of peace on mountains with strong winds, hundreds of kilometers away from human settlements." Everything up to this point was recorded in their diary. But what happened after that, no one knows. The whole expedition was supposed to take 16 days. Before leaving, they had told their friends and families that once they came back down, they would send a telegraph to confirm they were safe. But as days passed, their relatives grew more and more worried. 15 days had already gone by, yet no message came from Dyatlov or any other group member. Finally, a rescue team was formed. On February 26th, the rescuers managed to find the hikers' camp on the side of the mountain. Just by looking at it, anyone could tell that something terribly wrong had happened there. The tent was covered with a thin layer of snow, and all the hikers' belongings were still lying neatly inside. But the cloth of the tent had been cut open from the inside with a knife. It looked as if something inside the tent had scared them so much that they had to cut it open and flee. The next day, the search for the missing hikers began around the area. Near the opening of the torn tent, the investigators found footprints in the snow. These footprints were leading downhill. Some prints were from shoes, while others were from bare feet. It's important to note that when someone walks calmly, their footprints appear close to each other. The footprints found here also looked normal, not like someone was running with long, panicked steps. The footprints continued for almost 500 meters and then suddenly disappeared. Most likely, fresh snowfall had covered the rest of the tracks. Following the direction of the prints, the investigation team walked ahead. After some time, they reached a large cedar tree. There, they found the remains of a small, extinguished campfire. And beside it, they discovered the frozen dead bodies of Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko. It took the rescue team the next 2 months to find all 9 bodies. The first 2 hikers were wearing very few clothes. No jackets, no pants, no gloves, no hats, no shoes, and nothing that could protect them from extreme cold. They had only light shirts and underwear on. Weather records revealed that at the time of their death, the temperature was about minus 30 degrees Celsius. Their clothing was so light, it looked like something you would wear in summer. But why were they dressed like that? The cedar tree nearby also had some strange signs. Its branches were broken up to a height of 5 meters, as if the hikers had tried to climb it in the darkness of night to save themselves from something. The next 3 hikers were found buried in the snow between the tent and the cedar tree. Compared to the first 2, these 3 were wearing slightly warmer clothes. But even they had no shoes or gloves. The direction of their bodies showed that they were trying to return to the tent from the forest. It looked like they were climbing back uphill, but collapsed and died on the way. These 3 had some injuries, but doctors said the cause of death for all 5 hikers found so far was hypothermia, the condition in which the body loses all its heat after staying in extreme cold for too long. The last 4 hikers were found much later, under a rocky area in the forest. Their location was about 75 meters away from the cedar tree, but in the opposite direction. 3 of them had severe injuries. 1 had a cracked skull, and 2 had broken ribs. According to the medical examiner, these injuries could not have been caused by a human or animal attack. He believed they had fallen from a height. The idea of an animal attack came up only because 2 of the bodies were missing their eyes, and the woman's tongue was gone. But these were most likely caused by natural decomposition or animals after death, not an attack. The strangest discovery was that 2 shirts and a pair of pants found at the scene had traces of radioactive material on them. At first, investigators suspected that the hikers might have been murdered. But on May 28th, the criminal case was closed because there was no evidence of murder or any sign that they had harmed each other. So what exactly happened to these 9 people? Why did they leave the tent door untouched and instead cut open the tent with a knife to escape? What kind of emergency forces people to slice open their only shelter in freezing temperatures? Whatever the emergency was, it seemed to end the moment they stepped out of the tent. Their footprints were calm and normal, not the footprints of people running in panic. This means the danger was inside the tent, not outside. Once they left the tent, they appeared to relax and walk normally. According to the official report, 6 of the 9 hikers died from hypothermia. But after seeing the condition of their bodies, it was hard for people to believe that the cold alone had killed them. By now, the case had gained international attention.
Странное исчезновение в горах Северного Урала группы американских документалистов.
Families of the hikers and many others began speaking out against the Soviet Union's explanation. They believed the government was hiding the real cause of death and covering up the truth. Suspicion grew even more when radioactive particles were found on 3 pieces of clothing. Immediately, people began thinking about nuclear tests. This was during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. Only a few years earlier, the U.S. had dropped nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, showing its military power. After that, the Soviet Union also began conducting several nuclear tests. People believe that the Soviet Union might have secretly carried out a nuclear test on that mountain. They suspected that radiation from such a test had killed the 9 hikers, and that the government was blaming hypothermia to cover it up. Investigators looked at the case from many different angles. At one point, an avalanche was suggested as the cause of the tragedy. The theory was that the hikers might have heard or felt an avalanche at night and panicked, cutting open the tent to escape. But the avalanche theory never fully made sense. If there had really been an avalanche, the tent would have been buried under a thick layer of snow, but it was only lightly covered. Second, the group leader Igor Dyatlov was an experienced hiker and skier. He would never set up a tent in a place where there was any risk of an avalanche. After the incident, more than 100 expeditions visited the area. None of them found any conditions that could cause an avalanche on that slope. Dangerous conditions on the mountain usually happen only in April and May, when the snow starts melting. But the 9 hikers were there in February, when such conditions do not occur at all. This is the last photo taken by one of the hikers' cameras. It was taken on the same night the incident happened. It appears to be a picture of some kind of light, but the camera lens could not focus properly in the dark. Because of this mysterious photo, a new theory started spreading. Some people believe the light in the sky was something unidentified, maybe a UFO or a meteor. But whatever it was, it did not fall near the hikers. If something had crashed, we would have found debris or remains just like the bodies found under the snow. No such crash material was ever discovered. The real meaning of this final photo has never been understood. And so the main question still remains, what actually happened in the Dyatlov Pass incident? Why'd they cut the tent open from the inside? How did some hikers get such serious injuries? Why were they wearing such thin clothes in freezing temperatures, even though they were all experienced hikers? To find answers, we need to go back to the tent, the very first link in this chain. Photos taken a night or two before the incident show an exhaust pipe coming out of the tent. This exhaust pipe and the stove inside were both designed and built by the group leader, Dyatlov. On the night of the incident, they had used this stove because cooked food was found inside the tent. It is possible that when the exhaust pipe was closed, some burning embers were still left inside. Those hot coals might have accidentally reignited, causing sudden smoke or a flare-up inside the tent. When the tent was found, the exhaust pipe was missing. This means that if a fire started inside, the smoke had no way to escape. Instead of going out, the smoke filled the tent, making it hard for the hikers to breathe. This could explain why they panicked, why they couldn't control the smoke, and why they cut open the tent and rushed outside. There is evidence supporting this theory. Burn marks were found on some of the hikers' clothes and bodies. Some of them even had blood coming from their mouths. And one common cause of coughing up blood is inhaling thick, unfiltered smoke. Once they escaped the tent, they walked calmly to find shelter. Some hikers ran out without warm clothing. They already knew a potential shelter spot near the trees, so they headed toward the forest. There, they started a small bonfire. The rescuers later found the burned-out coals near the cedar tree. 4 hikers who were wearing more clothes went deeper into the forest to search for firewood. While they were deeper inside, a small slide of snow or a minor avalanche from a rocky slope may have occurred. The 4 hikers fell onto the rocks below and suffered severe injuries, cracked skulls, broken ribs, and internal bleeding. The 2 hikers who had little clothing died near the cedar tree. The remaining 3, who attempted to climb back toward the tent, collapsed from exhaustion and froze to death on the way. The 2 hikers sitting near the bonfire also froze after the fire went out. As for the radioactive particles, everything around us has a small amount of natural radioactivity, but these clothes showed unusually high levels. 2 group members, Alexander Kolevatov and Georgy Krivonichenko, worked at Soviet nuclear facilities. The radioactive clothing belonged only to these 2 men. All the other hikers' clothes contained normal, harmless levels of radiation. Regarding the missing body parts, those injuries likely happened after death. Wild animals may have attacked the bodies while they were lying in the snow. It has now been 65 years since the tragedy. Out of the 10-member group, only Yuri Yudin survived, because he turned back earlier due to illness. He died naturally at the age of 76 on April 27, 2013. We hope you enjoyed this Nexus of Knowledge video. Thank you so much for your kind comments, likes, and shares. See you in the next amazing video.